So my name is Mauro Guillen. I'm a professor at the Wharton School, and I'm here with the Dean of the School, Geoff Garrett, who yesterday made a keynote presentation to our 1,900 students who are registered for our class on the economic and business impact of the COVID epidemic. So Geoff, even before becoming Dean, you wrote quite a bit about globalization. Do you think globalization went too far and has exposed ourselves to high risks in terms of the occurrence and spread around the world of these kinds of problems?
Mauro, this is obviously an enormous question, but I can't let this opportunity go without telling everybody what an extraordinary job you have done in putting together this class in real time. It's the largest class ever for the Wharton School, and the quality of the speakers is great, and I know we're already getting extraordinary positive feedback from our students, so thank you. On this really big question of has globalization gone too far, clearly we're now in a second wave of that, right? In the past 5 years, post-Piketty and all of that, you know, the critique has been, yes, globalization was good in aggregate, but we didn't think about disaffected populations enough. And I think that was true. And now we're going to have globalization is, in fact, the courier, the carrier of the coronavirus. You know, that I have to say that this really pains me at a personal level because, like you, my life has been a global life. The opportunities that I got in coming to the US for higher education changed my life in ways I could never have imagined. And I think globalization has been, in aggregate, a massive good. The challenge going forward is going to be protecting the good against what's bound to be an insular pushback. And I think the first way to do that, I mean, it's a leadership lesson, is to be a little more honest rather than Pollyanna-ish about the benefits of globalism. So maybe we can talk about that. I mean, I know you've been thinking about this topic as well.
Yes, and it is an extremely important thing to keep in mind. You know, one could argue that perhaps there is a way of countering some of the negative effects of globalization. And of course, you know, this is precisely the moment in which we all need to think about that. But yesterday you lectured vividly about leadership in a time of crisis. So what would be the 2 or 3 key takeaways for all of our alums who are watching, who are running organizations or they're leading teams or they're doing their work right now in the midst of this crisis?
Yeah, so what I said to our students, Mauro, was the God's honest truth, that I started 2020 thinking about making some predictions about the year or the decade. And I know you're thinking a lot about what will happen in the next decade too. But almost immediately I thought predictions are basically impossible today because of uncertainty, right? And so I think the uncertainty has 3 dimensions. The first one is events are literally unpredictable. The pace of change is faster than ever before, and we live in a world of contested facts or no facts. So what does that mean for leaders? For me, the biggest thing is that the kind of heroic leadership model, you know, follow me, I know better, is unlikely to work going forward. So instead of the hero leader, I'm sort of arguing for a leadership model that I'd call be real, be humble. Be humble that you don't know everything. You work hard, you're pretty smart, but you can't know everything and you need other people's help. Second, be open. Transparency is really important, I think, but also is a sort of role that I'd call something like explainer-in-chief. The world is a dizzyingly complex and scary place. Leaders have to be able to unpack that in ways that will help other people come with them. And then third, I think, and this is really about speaking to a younger population, a kind of Gen Z world, is you've got to be committed, right? We have there are a lot of statements, some of them disparaging about younger people. But what I see in our students, and I'm sure you do too, is that they're just so much more mission-oriented, purpose-driven than ever before, and they expect leaders to be that way as well. So my overall message to leaders would be to be real. It's an incredible challenge, but I think it's the one that we need to rise to.
Yes, and yesterday you alluded to one very specific decision that leaders and actually workers and healthcare personnel are having to make on a daily basis. which is to make life or death decisions. And in particular, you refer to this trade-off between lives and the economy as we think about what public health measures need to be implemented. So what's your view on this trade-off between lives and the state of the economy?
Look, this is the biggest one, and it's literally an impossible one, right? I mean, and it is what every leader is dealing with on a minute-by-minute basis. So we know that if you listen to the public health officials, you're going to literally stop the economy. And we know that the consequences of that could be catastrophic. You know, we're recording this on Thursday in the US new unemployment claims just came out, a 10x increase in unemployment claims in 1 week in the United States. But if you go the other way and you say, God, we've got to protect the economy, you know that you're going to be propagating the virus more and more people will die from that. You know, I see another dimension to this, which is the short term versus the long term. So I think I end up being on the public health side. I think what I'd call in terms of our class, the Zika manual side, which is that we've got to throw everything we can at the crisis in the next several weeks in terms of testing, in terms of ICU and hospital beds, and in terms of practicing radical social distancing. We've got to do that. We know that the economic consequence of that will be really dire. But I think in the medium term, that makes a V-shaped recovery more plausible. If we relax public health too soon, we're going to get into the U-shape or an L-shaped recovery, and I don't think the consequences of that obviously are literally catastrophic.
So in terms of flattening the curve, which is obviously everyone's goal these days, what you think is that essentially then public health measures should come first and then the economy later? Or are you arguing that we need to balance the two in a different way?
Well, I think right now in the US, obviously we're in public health first, but augmented by extraordinary economic response, right? So we've got the $2 trillion stimulus. We've got even more unconventional behavior by the US Federal Reserve happening at exactly the same time as public health measures are stopping the economy, right? So that's the balance. But if we go longer term, and I thought Ken Smetters made this point very well yesterday, that there will be a cost to $2 trillion in stimulus and everything else that's going on, which is the debt burden. You know, the debt burden today we're not so concerned about because interest rates are low, but at some point in the future we're going to return to a world of more normal interest rates, and the public debt combined with the private debt burden out there is going to constrain growth for decades to come. But you know, again, leadership question, I don't see that there's any choice at the moment. So I believe that the combination of radical public health measures plus radical economic measures in the short term, in essence, to try to establish a floor. I think that's what everyone's looking for, right? We've got a radical downslope right now. Can we build a floor from which we can rebound? I think that's where policy is focused today, and I think that's the appropriate focus for policy.
So lastly, Geoff, we have a lot of alums listening in. Do you have any parting thoughts for them?
My thoughts the same for everybody, right? For everyone in our immediate families, our alums, everyone around the world. Stay safe and be healthy, but please contribute to a positive outcome. You know, it's such a bizarre thing, I think, for us all. We're all social animals. And to be, in essence, saying we can't do that for the good of society is the ultimate irony. I mean, I know, Mauro, that you've been referring novels to people, and I love the two that you had, Love in the Time of Cholera, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and The Plague, Albert Camus. You know, these were existentialism novels, but they had a lot of humanity at their core, and I think that balance is exactly where we need to be. So my heart goes out to everybody who's online and, of course, everybody all around the world. For me, this is literally unprecedented. There's been nothing like this in my entire lifetime, and that's an extraordinary thing to contemplate.
Well, thank you so much. So this was a conversation with the Dean of the Wharton School, Geoff Garrett, commenting on his lecture yesterday with 1,900 students from all over campus who are taking this class. Thank you for joining us.